to the Morning Five on Wednesday, August 27th, 2014. I am Dave Biddle, and I'm joined by the People's Champ, Matt Baxendale. Bax, Ohio State was supposed to release its depth chart yesterday, but never did. I expect that will come sometime relatively early today. In the meantime, let's take a look at some of the position battles from preseason camp and who we think emerged ahead of those battles. Let's start with corner. Head coach Urban Meyer said earlier this week it's a battle between Eli Apple and Garyon Conley for that other corner spot opposite Duran Grant. That's a toss-up for me. I mean, I like knowing that Armani Reeves is probably going to be the nickel back, and they're going to go with one of the redshirt freshman corners. I'll go with Garyon Conley, but I think that's really a toss-up. What's your thoughts there?
Yeah, I agree with you. I like Conley a lot. But I have to think that Conley's the kind of guy who, he was a very good cover corner coming out of high school. People have to remember he was a former commitment to that school up north, and Urban liked him so much he managed to flip him. Conley's the one we've heard a lot consistently about. Urban said earlier this year that he probably should have played last year, whereas Eli Apple took into the spring to lose his black stripe. By the way, it makes me feel really good that two players who were extremely highly rated were thought to be very good cover players coming into college are both redshirt freshmen fighting for a starting position. And no knock on Armani Reeves here, but after having seen him play last year, I'm a little more comfortable with him as a nickel versus a starting corner opposite Duran Grant. So, this is the young depth that Urban Meyer's recruited to Columbus finally starting to come out. But look, whoever wins the job, I think, is going to do a good job. Because I also think the system, all of our corners are going to look so much better this year because they're going to be put in a better position to succeed.
And at safety, looks like Titus Powell has one starting spot locked down, although I still think the jury's out on him. I mean, he's huge for a safety. He runs extremely well for a safety, so I get what the coaches see in him, but I just think he has issues with tackling. He sometimes overruns plays. He's not as physical as I would like to see. So hopefully Titus Powell can prove me wrong, but it looks like he's got a starting spot locked down. The other starting spot seems to be a toss-up between Von Bell and Cam Burrows. I think Von Bell is going to get the nod there. I think both guys are going to play. Your thoughts there between Bell and Burrows, Bax?
Well, after having seen Bell play last year in the Orange Bowl, I really want him to start. He showed a lot in terms of athleticism, sense on the ball, good tackling. I liked Von Bell in a very limited experience last year. I think Von Bell is going to have the kind of year this year that it's similar to the impact Ryan Shazer had in 2012. And by that I mean we're all going to see him play extremely well, and we're all going to wonder why the heck wasn't this kid on the field more last year. So what I think the takeaway from this is that it's not that Tyvis Powell's taking a starting job. Obviously, he was the hero of the final play against Michigan. And the coaches love him for a variety of reasons. To me, the big takeaway is that Cameron Burrows has pushed himself up to the level of a Von Bell and a Tyvis Powell. That bodes well for depth. Let's face it, it's not like you're going to go and only see two safeties all year. The fact that Cam Burrows has played as well as he has in camp to be in position to earn a spot like we're looking at right now just talks, again, back to that depth that Urban Meyer has recruited. Seeing so many young guys right now in position to get on the field is making me feel very good about where this team is going because all this young talent that are Meyer recruits are finally starting to really push their way onto the field. Because remember, very, very precious few freshmen played last year. Urban redshirted more kids than maybe at any point in his head coaching career. So it's good to see that these kids are developing into pretty solid contributors, especially a guy like Burrows, who when we saw him in limited reps last year against Indiana, again, looked pretty good. And you had to wonder, why wasn't he on the field more? So maybe he's going to be just like I described for Von Bell, but another one of those players that you see and you're like, why didn't he play more last year?
Switching to offense, Coach Meyer says that left guard is still undecided, but we have multiple sources telling us that Billy Price has won that job. I just think Coach Meyer wants to show respect to Joel Hale, who's been working his butt off, fifth-year senior, moved over to the offensive line, and Tony Underwood as well. He always mentions him. But Billy Price has that left guard job locked down from what we hear. So let's move on to the center position backs. I thought when Chad Lindsey transferred, it was a foregone conclusion that he would start. I'll admit it. I thought, well, there's no way he's going to transfer unless he was given some type of assurance that he would start. Well, here we are, game week, and it looks like Jacoby Bourne is going to be the starting center. Now, maybe down the line, Chad Lindsey will be the starting center. Maybe they'll rotate in this game against Navy this Saturday to some degree. But it looks like Jacoby Bourne is going to be the starter. Again, the depth chart will be released later today. It's supposed to be released yesterday, but so we think it'll be released today. Your thoughts on center? Do you agree with me it'll be Bourne, or do you think Lindsey might start this week?
I have to, at this point, agree with you that it'll be Bourne because I was in the camp after having gone to practice a couple weeks back that Lindsey just looked like the bigger, suited player for the position. But, you know, it's hard to knock off rust when you didn't go through spring football. It's hard to knock off rust when you weren't doing a lot of the summer workouts until you graduated from Alabama. And we read yesterday about in the boarding house about all the tempo that Ohio State wants to push with. And maybe Lindsey isn't quite set and in shape to do the tempo that we're expecting to see from the OSU offense. If they're going to be moving at warp speed, you have to have a center who can get everybody lined up in position and get the ball snapped off at warp speed. And right now, if Boren's the better one at that, then I think that's why he's at the top of the chart. And by the way, I'll say this for the Lindsey-Boren battle. I expect that on the depth chart to say Boren or Lindsey. I don't expect there to be a clear-cut number one in the situation right now.
That's a good call. That's probably a good call. We'll probably see a lot of oars on the depth chart if we see it released today. Speaking of that, wide receivers, might see some oars there. Now, they could go with the veterans. They could put Devin Smith, Devin Spencer in there as the starters and put Corey Smith and Michael Thomas in there as the backups. Or there could be some oars there. You know, I think they'll probably go with I can't imagine they're going to list the seniors as backups. There might be some oars, but I think Devin Smith and Evan Spencer will at least be listed as seniors. But the bottom line here is, from everything I'm hearing, they're going to rotate receivers. Last year, they're kind of stuck on their top 3 or 4. This year, backs looks like the top 6 or 7 guys are going to play, including that hybrid spot. We know Dontre Wilson and Jalen Marshall are playing there, but the actual wide receiver spots with Devin Smith, Evan Spencer, Corey Smith, and Michael Thomas, how do you see that shaking out?
Well, I'd have to think that Urban Meyer's going to run as many guys out there as possible. I remember at one of his earliest press conferences, Urban Meyer said he wanted to, in an ideal world, to have 12 receivers on the roster that he could trust to play. So I guess we're more than halfway there. That's improvement. But I think you're looking at another thing here, too, is that you're going to see a lot of sets of 3 and 4 wide. And that the pace that OSU wants to run at, you're going to probably see guys that are going to come on and off the field whenever they slow down at spots. And, again, having this many guys able to play is not a bad thing. It's a great thing. You want to have depth at the position. And this is a position where Urban's been raving about the top 6 guys for most of camp. So you know it's a good thing because it means these guys are getting their stuff done. It's not like, say, Michigan's offensive line where there's a bunch of ands and ors because nobody knows who the heck's going to be able to start because they're all a big blob of average. These guys have actually played really well in camp, and Urban's repeatedly talked about how happy he is with the play of the wide receivers. So in this case, this is only a good thing because you're going to see more playmakers on the field for OSU. And with J.T. Barrett at quarterback distributing the ball, that's exactly what we want because Ohio State's offense is going to look different this year than it did with Braxton Miller and Carlos Hyde essentially being wrecking ball runners, and that was the entire offense. I mean, different offense this year. It's going to take advantage of the whole width of the field. When you have that many playmakers that you can get the ball to, it's only going to bode well for your success.
And last position group, backup running back. We know the starter is going to be Ezekiel Elliott, but this is very important because obviously you need a good backup running back regardless of what football team you're on. When your starter is a first-year starter, you need a good backup. When your starter is entering the season with a bum wrist, even though they say Ezekiel Elliott's medically cleared, the backup is important. I love Ezekiel Elliott, but it's clear that number 2 back is going to play a lot this year. I think the guy that will get the most carries is Curtis Samuel, but I did a piece yesterday for the site backs predicting what the depth chart will look like. I think Ohio State's going to go with a few ors here. I think it's going to say Curtis Samuel or Briante Dunn or Rod Smith as the backup. Again, I think Curtis Samuel will end up being the backup running back. I think Briante Dunn will also get some carries. I'm not buying that Rod Smith is going to get a lot of carries. Your thoughts on how that's going to shake out with the backup running back?
Well, I would have agreed with you 100% that Rod Smith would have gotten carries before I saw him at practice and saw the way he was running and working and how he was at that time when Ezekiel Elliott was sitting out. He was the number 1 tailback in practice. So I'm hesitant to say that Rod Smith isn't going to get carries just because of the way he looked. Because this is Rod Smith. You know, he's the guy who has never put it together at OSU. We all know he has talent, but he's never really been able to turn it into production. And you figure on a team with this much depth at tailback, Urban's going to play the guys who are younger, the guys who are going to be able to develop. That would be the natural thought process. But I tell you what, Rod Smith is running hard right now. And while I doubt it'll hold up over the course of the season, I mean, we saw what happened with Jordan Hall last year. After he rushed for 500 yards in 4 games, he hardly touched the ball the rest of the year. I do think you're going to see, at least in the early games, all 4 of those guys getting carries. And while Ezekiel Elliott might get 50% of them, the first game or 2 or 3, you're going to see it split more evenly around the board than I think we would have initially thought. Though I do have to say, against Virginia Tech, it may, depending on how the game goes, that could all get thrown out the window if the Hokies can keep it tight.
Great stuff from the People's Champ. Our hearts go out to Marshawn Lattimore. Best wishes to him today. He's having surgery, lower leg injury, likely going to redshirt. He'll be back next year as a redshirt freshman. One of the top corner recruits in the country, so we wish him well. In the Dean's office is on the site right now for recruiting fans. You can ask Bill Kurlick, the Dean of Ohio State Football Recruiting, any questions. So in the Dean's office is posted right now for subscribers. Coverage tonight after practice. I want to let you know what we have in store for you. We're going to meet with Urban Meyer after practice. That's going to be around 6 o'clock. We're also going to meet with Luke Fickell, Tom Herman, and all 5 of the captains. So look for that. We're going to have stories, videos, bolts on the site late tonight after speaking with Coach Urban Meyer, Luke Fickell, Tom Herman, and the 5 captains. Thank you to the People's Champ, Matt Baxendale. Thank you to all the listeners out there. Take it away, best damn band in the land.